I think you're right. Balance is the key. We see that Walmart has been given the green light to move into the South Side. Could be possibly 2, could be 4, could be up to 6 Walmarts on the South and West Sides of Chicago. Walmart is also in a situation where they have to sort of abide by some union rules. What do you think, Sam Adam, when it comes to Walmart moving in and them saying, you know what, we still want a right to work?
Well, I'm what you'd call, I suppose, a deep-seated liberal. I am always for the worker. That's what I am. That's just who I happen to come out for. These are issues, I think, that are very important, and important in a lot of different ways. I can understand how a person who owns a business says, I want to run my business the way I want to run it. But I can also understand, and actually my heart goes out to the workers who say, look, we have a right to negotiate with you. If I as a clerk, I'm negotiating against the Waltons, I'm going to lose that battle every day of the week.
That's right.
So to watch Walmart come in, there are some amazing things. The most important thing to me is what has happened in this country is we have an energy now. We have a young, developing energy that are saying we are not going to take this anymore. We haven't had that since, in my opinion, since the 60s, where people are really starting to get together and say, I understand that we may live in one of the greatest countries in the world, but we need to make this better and stand up for their rights. Wisconsin was wonderful for that.
Yeah.
That's where I went to school. I have a condo that my wife and I have up there in Madison. I love Madison, best city next to Chicago in America. But to watch those people get excited and then come out and say no longer, as Thomas Jefferson said, that people will suffer the evils as long as they're sufferable. Well, we are getting to a point where they're no longer sufferable. And it's time to stand up and say enough, whatever side you're on, but let's get it out there, let's get the debate, let's have the marketplace of ideas settle it.
Lenny, I'm coming your way. I want to read something that Abdul Ghani al-Iryani, he's a Yemen political research analyst. He said, whether it is Egypt or Yemen or Libya or Tunisia, the people are disempowered. People are marginalized, and the few at the very top monopolize the power and the wealth of the country. The level of corruption in Yemen is definitely worse in Egypt and maybe as bad as Libya. Let's bring that quote to the United States. Are people disempowered, Lenny, McAllister, in this country? We've got a super liberal here and we've got the hip hop Republican. Talk to me, Lenny.
Well, it's either or. People said, and I'm going to throw this out there, is this astroturf that we're seeing from the unions up there organizing in Madison? Because that's what was said about the Tea Party. And it's going to either be astroturf on both sides, or both sides are truly upset over the conditions of what's going on in this country. Because what we have found out is, for the most part, this recession doesn't really discriminate.
Right.
I mean, African Americans have caught it more than anybody else when it comes to the unemployment rates, but there's a whole lot of Irish and German Americans unemployed too. There's a lot of women unemployed, men unemployed. There's a lot of people that were once making $80,000 and $90,000 and $100,000 a year that no longer have the home they were living in 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So what we are finding, both sides are upset. I would dare to say that it's more genuine than AstroTurf. But with that said, we're going to have to start looking at what are the solutions, because there are still some uses for unions here. We cannot allow the American worker to be taken advantage of. At the same time, unions cannot operate as if we're still in the 60s and 70s. We're going to have to look at what is the financial paradigm that we're in right now. How do we come across with something that's fair, that will allow us to move forward and get out of this mess without necessarily balancing it on the back of the working class American or Illinoisan, but at the same time making sense so that we have an Illinois that makes sense in 15 years.
Yeah, quickly, Stacy, and then I'm going to switch gears.
What I find interesting about these arguments, though, is that we find right now is that there is a greater concentration of wealth in the 1% of America than it is anywhere else. So when we speak about, you know, distribution of resources and how people live in this country, everyone is upset. And there's reason for it. But we have to get past the propaganda, because propaganda has us stuck in the fact that there is the greatest dichotomy right now between the haves and have-nots since the records have been kept of this in America right now.
Yeah.
And we're living that. So what does that really mean to everyone sitting around the table? We can't let the Koch brothers continue to propagandize the working class white man as much as we cannot let anyone else do it on the other side. We have to understand we're fighting the same battle.
Yeah.
We have the same issues, and we have to speak about those issues, because what we'll find is that the commonalities are way more than the differences are.
I'm shifting right there. I'm going with the three of you. Let's talk about privilege, especially when it comes to privilege and the African-American divide of the haves and have-nots. Let me throw some names out at you. We'll get to Bill Cosby and Russell Simmons later. But Jalen Rose, he has a documentary out about the Fab Five at Michigan. Of course, the Bulls are doing well with Derrick Rose right now. Hopefully he'll be MVP. But bumping to Jalen Rose, he had some very interesting comments about Duke University and Grant Hill. I'm going to read these quotes. He says, quote, "I felt that they only recruited black players that were Uncle Toms. I was jealous of Grant Hill. He came from a great family. Congratulations." That's a quote from Jalen Rose. He also says, "I was bitter. I looked at it as they are who the world accepts and we are who the world hates." What do you think, you three? Do black people have more of a problem with each other than others outside of the community? Because you've got Jalen Rose saying that he was resentful that black people could be middle class. Talk to me, anyone.
He didn't say that.
He absolutely
come
said
on,
that.
he-
He absolutely
Let
said
her
that.
finish. Let her finish.
He may have said that, but I think the spirit of what he was conveying as an 18-year-old kid,
He was young.
right? Because I think that this documentary goes back to when he was 18. I can see both sides very clearly. And full disclosure, I was an avid Fab Five fan.
Yeah.
So,
I think we all were.
But is he
Nobody
justified? No matter how old he is he justified in that statement? Because
Well,
that's a statement of someone who's a hater.
the last part of the statement, he was bitter. Who wouldn't be bitter when you see two parents and a child who has benefited from a two-parent household? Your daddy is a Yali. He was a professional football player. You have this beautiful mother, and they look as if they are the Huxtables.
But is that a reason to hate, though? I mean,
It's-
come on now. I mean,
it's a
am I
reason-
going to hate everyone that has a bigger house than I
No,
have?
you're not.
That's
But
rolling better?
if you're a teenager coming from a very disadvantaged circumstance, and you're always wondering, why do I have to walk through this neighborhood where there are vacant lots, dilapidated housing, burned out cars, and potholes the size of craters in the street, you're going to be bitter about a lot of things. And you zero in on what's closest to you,
Yeah.
and you project that bitterness.
Sam Adam Jr., is that justifiable, though, to be bitter at the closest thing to you, and another African American who has a little bit more than you, you're going to aim that hate at?
And now, this may be psychobabble to a lot of people, but I saw Jalen Rose's statement as profound. And what I mean by that was he expressed a true hatred for self. This wasn't really him pointing out what the other guy had, what Hill had. This was saying how he saw himself. And that's one of the concerns that I have. I see this every day. I deal with these young kids who are charged with crimes, selling dope, murders, and that type of thing. And I see the self-hatred. Now, where does that come from? That comes from, in my opinion, looking at a lot of television. You see what other people have that you don't have. You look around the community. You don't have two parents in the home. And that's one of the things we've got to stop as a community, as a people, identifying what blackness is.
Yes.
Certainly.
They are, look at the table.
Yeah.
We're all shades, colors, sexes, different economic backgrounds. And we are professionals.
Yes.
There are, Jalen Rose comes from an area that may be different from Hill, but they both have a black experience. To say one is simply more black than the other because he's poor or because he doesn't have is simply not the case. We're doctors, lawyers, radio personalities, teachers, and if we can get that to the community out here, we can start to heal ourselves and then step forward.
Lenny, I heard you on WVON this morning. You were kind of shading that particular point. Do you agree with Attorney Adam?
I agree. We have to look at what blackness is and stop defining it in such a small realm. I mean, truth of the matter is we have that politically. I face that all the time as a black Republican where I'm told I don't care about the community, but no one's been out there with me advocating against domestic violence. No one's been at the jails talking to our 14 and 15-year-olds trying to get them on the right track. It's that hip-hop Republican that's there at 7 o'clock at night giving up time with my family that's doing it. But If you look at the labels, if you look at, well, he went to Davidson College, well, he went to Catholic schools, he can't possibly love black people. We go through that way too much, and it's a tragedy. It makes us basically accessories to murder. Because what we do is we condone the behavior out there because we refuse to acquiesce and use all the available resources that change the tragedies we see before us every day.
The Huxtables versus Def Jam. Russell Simmons and Bill Cosby, fisticuffs, verbally. Terrible exchange just recently occurred. Russell Simmons, of course, hip-hop mogul, clothing executive, basically tried to apologize to Bill Cosby, and he told Bill Cosby that he loved him at the Jackie Robinson Annual Awards dinner in New York. Bill Cosby, quote, tells Russell Simmons, "Get the F out of my face," end quote. The event was honoring Sean Diddy Combs, and many people think that Bill Cosby was justified. Talk to me. We just got a few minutes left. Who wants to delve into that?
Bill Cosby has been upset with the images that have been purported from the hip-hop culture, been purported by things such as BET and other media entities for quite some time now. And he has a point. He, just 20 years ago, was on the cusp of purchasing NBC.
Yes.
Can you imagine what the image of African Americans could be throughout the media if he purchases NBC instead of BET purchasing videos throughout the 90s? And he, I think, is on a crusade for the rest of his days to get us to pay attention to what we are accepting as truth visually moving forward.
He is an imperfect man. None of us are perfect, of course, but he has done some carousing with very, very young women who aren't his wife. And so I've got problems with Russell Simmons, who tries to mask the fact that everything he's done lyrically, everything he's produced lyrically in his companies have been, he's washing his hands and he's clean of that particular sin, if you will. I also have some problems with Bill Cosby making a statement like this. I think that Russell Simmons was putting the olive branch out and he got the F word in exchange. Final comments. I'm going to go with Stacy first.
Well, you gotta love Bill Cosby. You gotta love Bill Cosby. I mean, anytime you get to a space and time where Bill is, you can say what you want to say. I mean, that's what my granny tells me. It's like, I've lived long enough to say what I would like to say and do exactly what I want to do.
And if you can do that in a sweater, you are you are the man.
I love it.
I happen to agree, not with what he said to Russell Simmons. There's a time and a place for everything.
Yeah.
And perhaps we don't need to have that kind of exchange in public.
Sam, I gotta go. I don't see nothing wrong with a great defense attorney. Thank you guys for being on Off 63rd. Thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen. To my guests, Sam Adams Jr., Stacy Davis Gates, and Lenny McAllister. Hey, continue the discussion after the show by calling my voicemail, 773-487-1352. Send me an email at Garrard@off63rd.com, and you can also hit the website, www.off63rd.com. Thank you for watching. Hey, remember, victory, it's yours. I need you to stay positive, keep your head up, and always be encouraged. Have a good night.